Have you ever noticed how your sense of self can vary throughout the day? How sometimes you can be resourceful, resilient, and creative, and at other times less so? How do you make sense of that? And what can you do about it? I'm Graeme Summers, here to talk to you about ego states. So, what are ego states? Why do people find this idea useful? And how can you use it for your personal and professional development? Ego states are states of self, and they're fab because they're patterns of feelings, attitudes, and behaviours. Here's a really simple but useful way to visualize and think about the different states we move in and out of throughout the day. The letters stand for the different types of ego states, so that's parent, adult, and child. So, what are the differences, and how does it help us to know these differences? So think of a good day. Think of those situations where you've met some of life's challenges with resourcefulness and resilience. And you've probably been bringing those combinations of feelings, attitudes, and behaviors that have been appropriate to the present challenge. And we'd call those combinations adult ego states. And we manifest those in two ways. Firstly, we draw internally on previous life experience. So explicitly or implicitly, we're really bringing from the past some of our positive expectations that we will figure this out. We'll find a way, and that you can be active in that process. You're also bringing your capacity to interact with the outside world and people around you. You're bringing your ability to negotiate with other people or with your environment, so that you probably get what you want most of the time. And even when you don't, you're able to bear the frustrations or disappointments, the normal frustrations. You're able to deal with that well because you're rooted in adult. So now think of a bad day. Perhaps you're meeting similar challenges to before, but this time you're less resourced. So, for example, if you make a mistake, instead of acknowledging it and addressing it in some way or putting it in perspective, you get self-critical. It's a bit like you turn on your inner critic. Idiot, fool, should have seen that coming. Can't you do anything right? So you get into maybe it's an internal critical or dismissive or negative dialogues, undermining yourself. So in response to those kind of internal parent messages, that you might have all sorts of emotional reactions. So you might feel embarrassed, you might feel guilty. If it's really bad, you might feel shame. Difficult feelings to manage. You might collapse, withdraw. You might get furious. Well, of course I made a mistake. Who wouldn't have made a mistake in these situations? But either way, what's happening is you're getting locked into your own defensive internal pattern of relating. And as you do that, as you're more consumed and preoccupied with that, you've actually bypassed the adult resources we talked about before. You know, your positive internal resources and your ability to interact and relate well, all of that's become short-circuited in this moment. So why do people find this model useful? Well, firstly, it provides a really accessible framework for thinking about your different kinds of experience. What is it you do well? Where do you get stuck? What happens within you? What happens around you in those situations? So it gives you a framework for describing and exploring the significance of those experiences. Secondly, it's a generative model, not a prescriptive one. It's not telling you what to do or what not to do. It's just giving you a way to think about experience. And it gives you then the space to ask yourself, so what would help? What would help me bring more adult resources to certain situations? What would help me reduce the possibility of responding from parent or child. And thirdly, it provides a really neat way of visualizing your way forward. So take a look at this diagram. So what you will have noticed is an expanding adult and a shrinking of parent and child. In a way, that's what we're aiming for. The specifics of what that will look like will be very unique, because everybody has unique histories, unique stories, unique strengths, unique vulnerabilities. But in general terms, this is what people are really looking at when we're looking at developmental direction, is how do I have more adult capacity to deal with the different situations I deal with? How do I reduce the possibility of me being defensive in those situations? What you will notice is that we haven't eliminated parent and child, and that's because it's a realistic and not an idealistic approach. So, and it also gives a really, I think, helpful, compassionate perspective too, is that we will fall back into our defenses at different times. Okay, that happens. Notice it, forgive yourself, explore how come maybe that happened, what you might learn from that, and how you can move on. What's the adult capacity you need to develop as an alternative? And that's an ongoing, lifelong process. Thank you for your interest in my short presentation. If you'd like to know more, you can download articles, book a course or a coaching session at co-creativity.com.